Welcome to the Wittering Podcast, Film Night, Episode 5. Tonight with special guest, Murray Kerr, photographer, cinematographer, Scottish wit, an all-round top lad. We'll be talking about his 3 favourite films, desert island film choice, and a night in a karaoke bar in Tokyo. In a kilt. On with the show! Welcome to the Wittering Podcast, Film Night. A special guest tonight is my mate Murray. How you going, Murray? How's it been?
Good. I'm good, Andy. Thanks. What's going on with you? How's the weather where you are?
Well, it's hot, and I'm in the dude den, and there's obviously no cooling because it's basically a sort of glorified shed, and I'm a little bit melting, but I'm not complaining about it. It's nice. I like the heat. How about you? What's it like in your neck of the woods?
It's jolly warm where I am just now. I'm in sunny Cyprus right now. Today it was a high 30s, and we've got August to look forward to. So it's a barrel of laughs.
And as the viewers might be able to tell from your delicate lilt, you are of the flag, the glaring flag behind you. You are of the Scottish persuasion.
I am. I identify as Scottish. As Scottish.
Yeah, good. So do I actually, but you actually are Scottish. But you guys, we're not so good at the heat apparently. I hear quite a lot. But...
No, we have basically where I am. It's like one day is like all of a Scottish summer. It's jammed into one day.
So you're getting a lifetime of sun. Yeah. Right, anyway, So look, tell us a bit about yourself. Whatever you want to say about yourself, as much detail or no detail at all. And
So I'm a photographer. I know you. We've met professionally, and we've bonded over the fine arts, namely films, obscure international cinema, and comics. So I consider myself a patron of the arts,
and an artist as well, right? Yeah.
I'm a photographer, which is an art form.
Yeah, so we've known each other for about a year, and it's been highly enjoyable from my perspective. And I wanted to talk to you. I always want to talk to you, but I thought I'd get you on the podcast because you seem remarkably well informed about many things. And you gave me a slight heads up about your 3 favourite films, and I'm hugely embarrassed, but not surprised to admit I had to look them all up, and they all seem bloody awesome. So that's very cool. And so you're a photographer, but you've also done sort of cinematography as well on a film or 2.
I started off. I trained as a cameraman, and I worked as a camera operator for a couple of years. And then, as a spin a bit, I was working as a camera assistant on a film, and still photographer hadn't turned up, and I had a little film camera with me, the old Olympus Pen 35s, little compact camera, as advertised by David Bailey back in the day. And I ended up taking the stills on the film, and I really enjoyed it. It was just behind the scenes stuff, and part of it all. And then they kept asking me back, and then I kind of went from moving images to static images, with occasional lilt back to video.
Wicked. Okay, cool. And what I'll do is I've seen some of your your photos, and I think cryptically those that I can share.
Yes.
And I thought I'd put my favourite 3 at the end when just as we wrap up, and then you can just quickly tell me a bit about them if that's all right. And
that's cool. That'd be great.
So on the film night, the Wittering Podcast film night, and I do this to most people I meet in the street, is I get to know them by them telling me their 3 favourite films, so their top 3. And then I'd always say there's going to be the desert island film. So if there's only one film that you're almost forced to watch for the rest of your years, what's that? And it may be one of your top 3, but quite often it isn't. So what's your top 3 films, starting with number 3?
It's actually been quite a tough one because my favourite film's always been my favourite film since the first time I saw it, and then I had to think about the other 2, and then I couldn't actually put them into order. So my number 3 is Barry Lyndon, the Stanley Kubrick film, set in the 18th century, based on a book by William Makepeace Thackeray, the guy who wrote Vanity Fair.
Okay.
So it's all bodices and wigs and and mistresses and stuff like that, candlelights and groats and guineas, and
What are groats and guineas?
it's all groats and guineas and
What are
bustling.
groats and guineas?
I don't know. A groat is a form of currency. I don't know what the value is. I know.
Oh, sorry. I thought they were dismissive terms for like a scrote. Uh,
No,
no,
no.
like a groat and a guinea isn't that like
Yeah,
a term for an
guineas.
Italian or something?
21 shillings, isn't it?
Fine, fine.
Let's lay off the Italians, Andy.
No, I love the Italians, but it still doesn't stop the guinea being a term, dismissive or otherwise, for
Yeah,
Italians.
yeah. Apparently, I heard a thing the other day. Actually, that the reason it's called a guinea is because the gold came from the Guinea Coast on the west coast of Africa, which was
Ah,
the jumping off point for the slave trade from Africa to the New World.
all
That was the
right.
sort of last. That's where they kind of got them all on the boats and took them over to work in plantations and all that horrible stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fine, okay, see, this is what I said at the beginning. You're remarkably well informed, uh, at least compared to me. So I watched the trailer of Barry Lyndon, and it reminded me of slightly older Dangerous Liaisons to an
Uh-huh.
extent, and it reminded me a little bit of the Duel with the Duel with what's his name? Oh, Bad Lieutenant
Oh, Harvey Keitel,
Harvey
the Ridley
Keitel,
Scott
and
film, The
yeah,
Duelist.
yeah,
The
yeah.
Duelist.
Say again?
Yes, it's called the Duelist. David Carradine and Harvey Keitel
Yes, the
keep going
Duelist.
back and boxing with and dueling over the sort of key moments in the 18th century. Yes,
Yes,
it's not the same film, but it's of the same era, and it's got that same sort of, it's all about the life and times of, as opposed to the great, with the history in the background, as
yeah,
opposed to the history and to the fore that you get in your Napoleons and what have you.
yeah, yeah. What, the Barry Lyndon one?
Well, both of them, both of
Both of
them.
them. Yeah. Oh,
Yes,
fine. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
he gets involved in the 7 Years' War. He comes from Ireland. He joins the British Army and goes to Europe, fights the 7 Years' War, and then joins the Prussian army and fights the French. They're fighting the French. Everybody's fighting the French back then. That's just the way we roll. Unlike now, when we're all busy mates.
Well, apart from
Yeah,
the Olympics, the amount of booing that the French do. I mean, some of it's justified, but really, come on.
that's the French for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who was it that famously said the only thing the French should ever host is an invasion?
I don't know, but they seem informed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Uh, yeah. Oh, okay, fine. So I'm definitely going to watch it.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, sorry. Go on. Go on.
Yeah, no, definitely it looks really interesting, and so that was the first one I looked at. So now I was thinking, oh golly, okay, well, what's number two going to be?
Well, before we go to number two,
Sorry,
the reason everybody talks about Barry Lyndon is all about how it was filmed.
okay,
So what Stanley Kubrick wanted to do was make it look the way things looked back then. And he always had a thing about he would never light inside a room; he would always light externally, so it would look the way things were supposed to look. And it's part of his technique, but it really came to the fore in the making of Barry Lyndon. So he couldn't use any artificial light. So what he did is there's a combination of he went to the Vatican, or the company that supplies candles to the Vatican, to get these like 3 foot candles, and had them specially made with 3 wicks so they would burn really bright.
okay,
And then he filled the room with these giant candles. And then he got an old a Mitchell back projection camera, which the shutter works in a certain fashion that leaves it open more than a normal film camera.
yeah,
And then he got a Zeiss lens, Carl Zeiss, a German film lens company who made lenses for NASA to go on satellites. And he got a 50mm lens that is f 0.7. I don't know if you know much about f-stops and cameras, but it's basically
not enough.
the smaller the number, the more light it lets in. So I've
Okay,
actually seen the the Stanley Kubrick exhibition in London a couple of years ago. They had the lens. Normally, a 50mm lens is about that size. This is like that, and it's like a pint glass. So it's this
yeah,
giant lens that allowed them to film by candlelight when it was technically impossible to do. Nobody could do it. Nobody ever tried to do it because it was so complex. And not only did he do that, he would move the camera in scenes. So he's lighting it by candles, and he's filming and moving. And the technical demands of filming like that are just like unbelievable. Like even now, film cameras and modern high def cameras still can't really do it. And he
Mhm.
did that back in 1972,
Jesus.
75,
So
1975.
was it a sort of a pursuit of an art that did it pay dividends on the actual celluloid? Did it
Oh, it
was the
is.
effects worth it?
It is one of the most beautiful films you will ever see. It is such a lush film. He also there's a lot of tech. Stanley Kubrick was a cameraman, a stills photographer, so he really understood cameras. He understood the qualities of cameras and the technical element of them. He also obviously the Shining was the first use of the Steadicam. It was first
Okay,
in a film. A
really.
guy had invented it for using in sport, and he saw a test reel of it, and went, "I can make use of that." Before then, cameras were on big cranes that were really, really complicated to move. They could only move in certain directions easily. He started making. He filmed The Shining, basically can move in any direction, completely fluid. So he was a real innovator with stuff like that. But the thing about it is, it is just the most beautiful film you will ever look at. Aesthetically, the way it's framed, the way it's shot. It's quite a ponderous film. A lot of people say it's very sterile, but I don't think it is. I think it just takes its time. There's a lot of shots that are in it that are straight out of 18th century portraiture
Oh,
paintings.
oh, really?
Yep,
Okay,
it's just beautiful. There's nobody has ever made a film like it. There's nothing
really.
like it
That's
at all.
that's
Yeah.
quite a claim. So was that what I've so I mean I love The Shining and I'm very keen on Chinatown. Um, but I don't know much more about Kubrick. Was that one of his? Whereabouts in his career was he?
It's just over the second half. Stanley Kubrick only made 13 films in his entire career.
Okay,
Yeah, he started
slightly
off.
more than Tarantino.
Yeah, a slack handful more than Quentin Tarantino. He started making films in the early 50s. He made some sort of B-roll, a couple of B-roll cine films, pathy type films,
Okay,
and then he made a
yeah.
couple of short documentaries, and then he made a short. His first feature was a film called Fear and Desire, set in a mythical war, and it's all about the trials and tribulations of men at war, and it's an interesting film. It's not great, but it's really interesting to look at because he goes from that to making two really good pulp films, The Killer's Kiss and The Killing. The Killing is
Okay.
one of the greatest heist movies you'll ever see. All other heist movies are compared against The Killing, and yet it was made on budget, script taken off the shelf. Just we'll just knock this out, and he turned it into a work of art.
Okay. I'm getting a feeling, or maybe I'm wrong, but I'm getting the feeling if I asked you who's your favourite director,
Um, I do like Stanley Kubrick, yeah,
that
but
maybe okay,
he's
interesting.
definitely up there. He's top three for sure.
Top three. Okay, that's we should do that as well for those who are more informed who actually know who may have directed their favourite films. Okay, so I'll just say one thing about the trailer. Is because I watched Gladiator and then Black Hawk Down the other day, and like the the conflict scenes, the fighting scenes are also sort of like not MTV, but they're very almost traumatic in the visceral nature of the violence. And then I
Mm.
started watching. I saw the trailer of Barry Lyndon, and they're all kind of the soldiers when they're there's a sort of a
Advancing.
battle scene. I'm a little bit like it looks like a sort of the is it the Gilded Knot on a Sunday afternoon
Hmm.
at Stamford Hill, around my neck of the woods. It looks a little bit like it's not really going to convey the the teeth gnashing
The
of war.
visceral nature.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's if you look at it, everything. Well, a lot of what Stanley Kubrick does is very observational cinema. He just watches things happening. It was part of his technique. He's famous for doing like dozens and dozens of takes. They would, and people talk about like you would do one take and then you get to five takes and you kind of think you've got it, and he would just kept asking them to go again. And people just like, we got it in take five or we got it in take 12. Why are we doing take 35? So like, well, I want to see what's going to happen. And it
Okay,
all
oh,
paid off.
interesting.
It's
Okay,
very high risk. It's very high risk strategy because you have to really hold your nerve.
Yeah.
Everybody's standing there going, "Why do we need to do 48 takes of somebody walking through a door?"
Yeah.
But that's just the way it just he was. He just liked to control it. He liked to be in control, but he also liked to see what will happen at the edges of it all, which is where all the great art happens. And you can go out and do something, and you can take a picture, or you can write a song, or you can write a book or a play or something like that. Um, but what happens after that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You just stop. David Bowie said that he would go and do a version of his song and go, right, that's it in the bank. Now we're going to go and try something with it. And
Okay.
that's how he came up with, Space Oddity and Life on Mars and things like that. He would right, the song's there. Let's go somewhere with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh,
I've
that's
always
cool.
I've
Yeah.
I've
That's
always
that's
aspired to when I go and take pictures, unless I'm being asked to go and take me a picture of a red ball sitting on a blue wall, you know, uh, you know, uh, you know, that kind of picture in color and black and white or something like that. I'm going to do that. And if I've got time to do something, I'll go and get the picture that starts the journey, and
yeah.
then I try to go somewhere with it. Let's try this and try, and I'll end up with a picture that I never expected, and I don't know when I'm going to get. I never know when I'll get it until it's there in front of me, and I go,
Yeah.
"That's it.
Yeah.
That's the shot."
Well, that's very interesting. I don't know if it's easy enough to split it into perhaps two schools of creativity, whereby one is it's so sort of previously planned out that I know exactly what I want. I've done the storyboard. I've got the lighting all sorted out. I can see it clearly in my head. I am going to keep going until I've recreated exactly what I've seen in my head. And then the other being, well, this is what we've got to try and convey, and we'll try it this way, but let's, sort of on the approach of no plan survives first contact. Let's put it
Hmm.
down, and then there's no way you can really know what's going to happen. And then
Hmm.
if we iterate several times and just give people enough freedom, maybe if you've got the right bunch of creatives there, actors or auteurs or whatever you want to call them, and cinematographers and sound people and all this sort of stuff. Let's start here and see what we get.
Let's go
Uh,
somewhere with it.
yeah.
Let's go and find a new version of this.
Yeah, yeah. Until the producers come and knock on the door and go, why is the budget blown and you've only filmed 15 minutes?
Yeah,
But it's art.
because art,
Yes, yeah.
darling.
But this
Um,
isn't art. This is business. So I guess you got
yeah, it's show business.
yeah.
The role of the producer was invented by Louis B. Mayer, the guy from MGM,
Okay.
because Eric von Stroheim famously took every penny the studio had and spent it in one film. He basically bankrupted the studio every single time, but he would create these like completely unique works of art that were just like tens of thousands of extras in the background for one
Yeah.
shot. And Kubrick's kind of that kind of guy as well. So they
I
had to
really
invent the role of the producer to rein
just to
in
keep. Have you
rein in
have
the
you seen?
creatives.
Sorry, but have you seen the film? Is it called Hugo? It's
The Martin
about.
Scorsese one
I think it
about
is. Yeah. The
about
orphan
Georges
in.
Méliès.
Yes, because
Yes,
that you just reminded me of the. Is it Ben Kingsley who plays?
yes, he's
Yes, Ben
Méliès.
Kingsley plays the old director who was a total trendsetter of the early cinema,
Yeah.
sort of fictional, I guess, but probably
No,
based
no,
on.
he's the guy. The trip to the moon and
I
the
really, of
Voyages under
course,
the
yes,
sea.
with the.
They're all. He did a version of the Jules Verne trip to the moon, and he was a complete pioneer.
Yeah,
Stop frame, like cutting people in, and using like animatronics and using puppetry, mixing them within the shot, and also editing them in as well. When people were like at that point, and like literally the turn of the 20th century, film cameras would just film things in the street. Very
yeah,
few people had actually considered it an art form. He's
yeah.
the guy who turned it into an art form.
Th- that is just bonkers. I mean, that is just another
Yeah.
level of disruptive. We can drop all these sort of like business. It's innovative, it's inventive, it's disruptive, it's game changing. But that must be such a perfect um, connection of like the right individual with this new form of
Hmm.
technology or media, and the right opportunity to just go mad with it, and
Yeah, we're only limited by our imagination.
yeah, and the budget
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Well, this was before producers. You could
Yeah,
spend a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
in
yeah,
one
yeah.
afternoon.
Okay, wicked. All right,
So
so
yes, so Barry Lyndon. Everybody talks about Full Metal Jacket and The Shining and 2001. Barry Lyndon is the Kubrick man's Kubrick film.
Okay,
That's the one to
wicked.
get
All
into.
right.
That and the Killing is really those are the
Yeah, I'm
two.
really excited because I love a heist film, especially, and I love films where you can see you watch the older ones and go, I recognise tiny aspects of that entire film, of which there are maybe 30 amazing aspects of this film, and someone's made a film in about 30 years after that using just two of those aspects, and it's
Mm-hmm.
been really popular. Just you because you say there's nothing original. There's it's just everything's a rehash of what's gone before. If you can look back to a certain point where you go, oh, you know what, that hadn't been done before,
Mm.
and so if it's one of those,
Yeah,
and then
the first that was the first person to do that thing in cinema or in photography or in art or something like that. That there is a point where you can't see it at the time; you can only see it with hindsight because you
yeah,
see what comes after it.
yeah. Oh, amazing. Okay, so that's number three.
That's number three. Number two is Akira Kurosawa's Ran.
Okay, yeah,
The,
okay,
the,
yeah.
yep, the guy who made the Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, Rashomon, all of that. He was uh, he's the guy who got me into Shakespeare, and I had to watch it in Japanese to get Shakespeare. So when I was at school, I had to. You will appreciate the following points. We read Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, and I hated it because it was right. Appreciate this, value this, and I went right. Okay, well, why? Because you say so. Yes, and I thought, what a lot of Tommy rot. I had no interest in it whatsoever, and I really I had no interest in Shakespeare. And then I saw Ran. I watched it with my brother many moons ago, and at the end of it, I went, "Wow, that was just incredible." So that's Shakespeare. No, it isn't. Yep, that is King Lear.
Wow,
It's the tale of King Lear.
yeah.
It's all
Okay.
about it's all about this fictional Japanese warlord Ichimonji, and he's getting on. So he leaves his empire to his three sons. The oldest son is the heir apparent, um, but he's a bit slack. The second son is the one who thinks he should be in charge, so
Uh-huh.
he's really resentful. The third son doesn't want anything to do with the power play because he loves his father. He doesn't want to take over.
Yeah.
It's not his interest. And the three sons conspire against each other, and it's like the three daughters of King Lear.
Okay.
It's exactly the same thing. And the color schemes are. I mean, it's it's a beautiful looking film. Again, it's all about the color. The color schemes of the three sons are primary colors: red,
Okay.
yellow, and blue.
Oh, really? What do you mean
Uh-huh.
by they put a filter on it, or just
No,
what the mise en scene or the
their
clothing?
uniforms
Okay.
are embellished with a color scheme in the way so you could identify people before we had modern uniforms. Before we had the kind of ranged weapons where anybody standing there in a bright red tunic was setting himself up as a target.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
so the armies are red, yellow, and blue, and it's all prime. It's all primal, and it's just a beautiful film. And he's another one of these filmmakers that has the nerve to hold a shot. There's another film called Kagemusha that he does, and the opening shot's like 13 minutes long, and
Really?
it's just people sitting in a room lit by a single candle, talking about something.
I wonder how many takes that took.
Pardon me.
I wonder how many takes that took.
Well, apparently, what he did in complete contrast to Kubrick was he would do rehearsals and rehearsal and rehearsal. He would rehearse for days sometimes, and then he would go and take one master shot, and he'd go, right, that's it, move on.
Well,
And then
that's
we'll
it.
go,
That's almost the two schools of creativity,
yeah,
or whatever
yeah,
you want
yeah,
to call it. I was getting to. You do all the prep, and then just bosh it out, or you just let it go a little bit.
yeah. And there's in Kagemusha and in Ran, um, and quite a few of his films, there would be big sequences, battle sequences, and other big action moments, big sweeping chunks of the story. And he would do the same thing. He would rehearse and rehearse and rehearse for days, and then he would set up a camera as a master shot and have cameras off left and right, and then he would go and film like 20 minutes of the film in one go.
Wow. Okay.
He would go back and then he would put them all together, and it would just all because it was one continuous take, and then he would put it all together, like layer it all together really quickly, and go, there you go, that's 20 minutes of your film right there.
Wow. That's very cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what
So
I would
yeah,
do. What would I do? I think I'd probably. I don't know if I'd have a vision I'd want to achieve or just a rough. I kind of like the idea of seeing what would happen, but maybe I'm a control freak. Maybe I'd want to. It's a really fascinating question to ask, I think.
yeah.
Um, so what sort of which are you? Do you think, Murray?
Um, I like the idea of being ready for things. I like being prepped, but I also like the idea of the journey. I think it's the
Yeah,
journey that excites me. It's you start somewhere. I've done fashion shoots for people and done portrait shoots for people in the past, and you turn up and you get your pictures of the outfits, and they're kind of standing against a wall or against a white background. You go, right, that's that. It's banked. The picture we've
yeah.
got the picture.
Okay.
Um, let's try something new. Let's mix the light up. Let's move. Let's try a different lens. Let's try something new. We'll change the color and try. You've got to do it all in camera as well. It's all in camera. You've got to know what you're getting. You can't just
Yeah,
hope. You can't just hit and hope and then go back and we'll fix it in Photoshop.
yeah,
That's for bluffers.
yeah.
You've got to know what you're doing. Ironically, yesterday I was taking some pictures of a cyclist, the guy who rides for a semi-pro team, and we went out to get some pictures on the road. So we were in a car. I was in a car. He was next to us on his bike, and I was just taking pictures. And after like one run at it, I went, right, that's that. It's done. What are we going to do now? So we had to come up with some new stuff. And so I don't know how it got into my head, but I thought, what do we do with a fast-moving object? We're going to slow the camera down. So I ended
Okay.
up taking a lot of long exposure pictures,
Yeah,
and then to try and get the notion movement of the legs, movement of the wheels, because it's human powered.
yeah,
That symbiosis, the symbiosis of man and machine is what I'm a big fan of cycling, and I like that. I like that idea. But as I say, within the first 5 minutes, I got the picture. But then I thought, right, I'm going to do something. I'm going to try something new, and ended up taking like really long exposure, like a second, half a
yeah,
second exposure, to get the movement and get a lot of them, like the vast majority of them, 90+% of them were all out of focus, and they
yeah.
were useless. But I got maybe 6 pictures. Took about 700 of it. Got 6 that worked. Like one
Wicked.
in 100 works. But when it
Really?
works, when it lands, it really lands,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that's the thing. That's what makes it interesting.
Absolutely. So the whole point of why this is called the Wittering is because I know we're always going to go off. I'm always going to go off tangents, and this is one of them. So I always fancied myself as a photographer, and I still do, but I am fundamentally shite. And what you call a bluffer. I'm a bit of a bluffer. But I remember I started taking photos like when I was in probably 1986, and it was all like 26 shots on a film,
Hmm.
the celluloid, and send it off for processing. And it was always quite exciting to send it off and then get it back in the envelope and then open it. But
The
after
mystery.
maybe 3 or 4 years of that, I knew it. Like I'd maybe get one or two good shots. The rest of them would be ambitious and theoretically creative, but fundamentally shit. And so when digital photography came along, and the notion of being able to take as many pictures as your camera could keep up with, um, it really helps people like me who even were not trying to achieve a really like challenging, ambitious shot of a second exposure at 40 miles an hour of a cyclist and most parts of them moving. Then it's really good, and you do end up showing people like, look at this photo, and people going, yeah, it's really good, Andy, bloody hell. And I go, yeah, I only took like 1.2 thousand photos to get that picture. But yeah,
It
so
doesn't.
so I've often, and I spent time in a dark room and I studied it a little bit, but I don't know if I was fundamentally impatient or just didn't grasp the relevance of focal length and stopper time and all this sort of stuff. Is it something you found that just made sense to you quite early on?
No, no. I had to really work on the technical element of it because I was all about composition. I've got a really good eye.
Yeah.
I'm not having to say natural. No one naturally has a good photographic eye because it's new tech. But I have a good eye because I pay attention
Yeah.
to the direction where things are in the framing. So I've got good composition. It's always been for me. It's always been good composition, the technical element comes after that, because you get your shot, you get the thing that you're trying to get, and then you've got to learn how to make it better. And I mean, I've been taking pictures for like 25 odd years, and it's only really been the past 5 where I've actually gotten any good.
Okay, good.
But that's okay. I think that's a decent work rate.
Yeah,
The Japanese say it takes 10,000 hours to become a master at anything,
yeah,
and I think I'm probably a wee bit over that. But I do remember the days of film, the golden age of film, and I do remember people saying that of a roll of film, you might get one picture that you liked.
yeah,
And with digital, even with digital now, like if I take 100 pictures, there'll be 10 that will be all right,
yeah.
and there'll be maybe 3 that will be good.
Do you think if you didn't have the liberty of taking endless photos, that you but somewhere more than 26, that you might concentrate more about the composition and the timing and everything that goes into a good photo? Do you think there's a sweet spot between just clicking away, like, click happy, the odds are I'll get something half decent, and then AGFA 26 shots on the
24 of them are masterpieces.
yeah, yeah.
2 spares.
Yeah,
Um, I think the digital thing was is great because it means you don't have to spend a fortune. Once
yeah,
upon a time, you did have to spend a fortune. I remember shooting weddings on film and spending like £300-400 on rolls of film and processing.
Jesus.
And now you
Yeah,
don't you don't have to spend money on film, but you got to spend all your money goes elsewhere. And all your bells and whistles and new lenses and all that kind of stuff and
yeah,
Lightroom and Photoshop and all that stuff. So it's not expense free. And I think the mystery of film, that was the great thing about it. You didn't really know what you were going to get until you got it back.
yeah,
Um, and sometimes it lands and sometimes it doesn't. I think what is great about digital though is that you don't have to worry about anything because you can just keep going till you lose
yeah,
interest or till you run out of run out of time, run out of steam, whatever. And I like that. That appeals to my journeyman
yeah,
approach.
yeah. Okay, okay, yeah, yeah. So I always have the thing when I take a picture, for example, of my wife, and it's not particularly flattering, and then she sees it and she goes, "You must delete that," and I refuse to delete anything. I mean, I have to spend like 60 quid on a terabyte external hard drive maybe once a year, but then I've just got a stack of them. And
Yep.
the notion is at some point I might go back and look at them in my dotage. Um, but I'm probably not going to, because if you did the maths on it, then you'd have to live the life again in order to have the time to look at everything. But
Yeah.
I can't, even the crap ones, I just can't delete.
Yeah.
And also it takes time to go through and get rid of those. Do you spend time?
I go through, I use Lightroom, so I put all my pictures into one program called Lightroom,
Hmm.
and you go through them all. And then, unless it's a picture of like I've taken a picture of my feet, or forgot to take the lens cap off, or something like that, which I still do. The first rule of photography club is lens cap, lens cap, lens cap.
Yeah.
Uh, Unless it's that, I don't delete them because I don't know if they'll become interesting again.
Exactly, and I always have in the back of my head that all of the greatest artists were totally unappreciated until they were
Yeah,
dead. So someone might come across my one of my hard drives and go, "Oh my God, he was actually not a shit photographer.
this
He was
guy
the
man was a
misunderstood
genius.
genius."
Yeah, he was just a misunderstood genius, and
Yeah.
now he's gone, and now his pictures are worth a fortune.
Yes. As long as someone's got the password to all the encrypted.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
password 123
Something like that.
or a variation on the theme?
Oh, don't get me started on passwords. Okay, fine. So that's called RAM. Why is it called
Yes,
RAM?
it's the Japanese word for chaos.
Ah, okay.
It means chaos in Japanese.
Yeah,
It is King Lear. If you know the story of King Lear, it's not just the sons; it's everybody else is conspiring against him, and they're all trying to double cross each other and outthink each other, and in the end, they ruin everything
so
with their own greed.
it's a glorious tragedy.
Yes, it is a tragedy. It is a tragedy.
Yeah.
There are. I don't think there are any jokes in it. Even the joke. There's one joke. There's one joke, and it isn't particularly funny, but they all laugh in their kind of
Well, because
15th
they're trying to
century
curry
Japanese way.
favour.
Pardon?
Sorry to interrupt, but so they laugh because they're trying to curry favour or something.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
There's a bit right towards the start of the film when you go and watch it, and I thoroughly recommend you do.
Uh,
There is a bit where the court jester cracks a joke, and everybody laughs, and you go, "What's funny about that?
yeah, yeah.
What's
Am I missing the point?
what am I
So
missing here?"
yeah, I mean, I've seen Seven Samurai, and I've seen Yojimbo, and I totally get it. I love Far East cinema, but mostly
Mm,
I think mostly it was the slightly. I'm a bit, as you can probably tell from the background. I'm quite a my favourite films are quite simple. I just like a dopamine hit,
hmm
and but I do like silent films that have lingered with me. Like on one of the first film night we talked, myself and my mate Chris talked about our three favourite films, and one of mine is Le Quatre Cents Coups by Truffaut.
Uh huh.
Um, and
Four
he
hundred
goes, when
blows.
say again?
The 400 blows.
Yes. Yes. And he goes, when did you last watch that? And I go, well, I was think, 31 years ago when I was 16. How many times have you seen it? Once. Why don't you watch it again? Well, because I don't want to put at risk the fact that it left such an impression with me. It's one of the first French films I saw. French cinema is, having slagged off the French at the beginning, French cinema is the best cinema in the world. In my opinion, but also objectively, it clearly is. I believe. And so I don't want to risk because my second favorite film a while ago was Kubrick's what is it? Where is it? Chinatown. It's
That's
down here.
Roman
That's the
Polanski.
top of it there. You can't see. But
Roman
and then
Roman
I watched
Roman,
it
Polan-
again. Sorry.
Roman Polanski did Chinatown.
Oh yeah. Oh sorry. See, yeah. See, I don't really have
Did you
the
just get a
level of
load of
knowledge.
posters from the market and stick them up in a bid to look interesting?
Well, no, this is actually like years ago when I did up this shed. I got a lot of my digital favorite films, digital posters, and then I found a guy on eBay who put them into wallpaper, and it's
Oh
just
wow,
wallpaper. It's awesome. It's like 45 quid, and
that's awesome.
yeah, it's really cool, man. But
Yeah.
but, but I like the very sort of easy win, quick hit films. And so when I see films that I know without fail are going to be, it's almost like I accidentally watch films that are sprawling epics. So like the Barry Lyndon one and the Ran, I'm going to
Uh-huh.
have to really G myself up to watch it. I know I'm going to go at the end. That was mind blowing. But
Yeah.
then again, I'll be before I get to that point of watching it, I'll be going, oh, I should probably just watch Gladiator again, or something that that's good, but not the same level of
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
yeah. I'm not getting that far, but yeah, you seem to grasp my point very well. So,
Yeah.
but the Seven Samurai is brilliant, and so and on your recommendation, Muzz, I will absolutely watch it.
Well, it is. It is. It's. I don't know if it's his best film because Seven Samurai is a complete masterpiece. Seven Samurai again. He was. It completely reinvented action cinema, existentialist uh, element as well. It's also where all the westerns got a bit up the arse. That's where the Magnificent Seven came from.
Yeah, yeah,
Yojimbo is the basis of all the Sergio Leone spaghetti
yes.
westerns as well.
Well,
Um, Kurosawa met John Ford in the early 50s
oh yeah,
and he said, "I'm a massive fan of your work." And John Ford said, "You know, I was just about to say the very same thing to you." And he went, "Well, thanks, what do you like?" He says, I like how you use rain as a character. And Kurosawa said, "God, you really have watched my films, haven't you?" He uses rain to change the mood as a character. And you see it
yeah,
at the start of Rashomon. The rain changes the mood of the scene. You see
really,
it in the Seven Samurai as well. The final battle is all done
yeah,
in the rain.
uh,
And it creates an effect. It creates a thematic effect. And you don't notice it
no.
until somebody says it and you go, "Wow, so it is."
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I remember one thing that's always stuck with me. At my school, we had a drama club, and then one of my mates, because mates was like a very good actor, and he was leading lots of these productions. And there was one that was done by the new drama coach or whatever, drama teacher. And he was a bit out there. I think I got word he was a bit out there. And we walked in. It was quite a modern contemporary piece. He might have even have written it himself. And they put it on, and it was pretty cool. And then and you're listening to it, and you're tucking it in. And then at the climactic bit, the twist to the pivot at the end, um, suddenly they turn off this very slight white noise that you haven't realised has been running constantly, and then they turn it off, and then suddenly you go, oh my god, I thought it was quiet, but now it's quiet. And then the pivot happens. You're like, fucking hell, that's amazing, and you all leave the theatre going, oh my god, that's mind blowing, and it stuck with me. But it's one of the, it was probably because it was so simple, and it was, and you didn't really notice. I didn't notice it at all. I didn't notice it, that there was this very gentle hum coming through the sound, the speakers, which they killed at the right time. So maybe a bit like The Rain, it's kind of like it's part of the fabric of the production, but you don't really get it until someone tells you, or they turn it off. Or
Yeah. I can see it. See what you do, because that will just it changes. It'll change your balance as well, because your ear will become so adjusted to it. And if you do that just at the right moment, when the door is opened or whatever it is, that will have like a physical effect on you.
yeah,
That's cool.
It was mental. He was accused of bit. Some people accused him of being a bit sort of gimmicky, but I don't think you
No,
could argue with the impact at all. I
no,
don't care.
that's
It
really
was,
clever.
yeah, it
That
was very
that
cool.
does remind me of. Have you seen? If you're a fan of French cinema, have you seen Irreversible, the Gaspar Noé film?
The
Not
fucking hell, man.
not a
Yeah,
comedy.
yeah. That film is mental.
Yeah,
Yeah. Go on. Sorry. Yes, I have.
he got the guys from Daft Punk to design the audio for it, and they put a subliminal tone in the mix that's designed to make you physically queasy.
Really?
Yes,
Oh my
because
god.
the film, as you know, it is a completely relentless
Yeah.
test piece. The first time I watched it, I had to switch it off after the
What?
first. I think it
What?
was
How?
after the
What? During the film itself?
it was after the nightclub sequence,
Yeah.
and I went, "Get this off! This is too much." I went back and watched it again, and then somebody told me after that they mixed a tone into the audio to make you uncomfortable.
Well, Jesus. Well, that's like there's that weapon they talk about that you have the right wavelength that can make
Yeah,
you
yep,
vomit. So it's a subtle element of that in there.
yeah, very much
And
so.
why not? You might as well use everything to take
If you're
the
going to make
audience.
people uncomfortable, you might as well make them uncomfortable.
Yeah. That is. Have you right? So have you ever turned anything else off? Out of
Um,
distaste or
uh,
distemper? Or,
I saw The Pursuit of Happiness. I watched.
yeah.
It's the only film I've ever walked out in my life. I've had to leave films because somebody's phoned me and I went like, you need to leave, because somebody's lost their keys or something like that. I go back
Yeah.
and watch it again. But I watched, that one with Will Smith?
I've seen some of the clips on
Oh,
LinkedIn. As yeah, cool.
it's like cinema for, you heard of Ayn Rand? Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, The
No,
Fountainhead. She's this
no.
despicable American Republican, who says, if you're not rich, you're a fucking loser. And I don't. Am we allowed to swear? I don't know if we're allowed
Yeah,
to
no,
swear.
mate. You can do what you like, but
You
it's up to you and your
fucking
delicate
cunt bubble.
sensibilities.
Bum, bum, bums.
Yeah, I just want to say to the audience, this is perhaps not. I'm sorry, Murray, but this is not your typical level of language.
I try to blend between the sacred and the profane.
Yeah,
Anyway, Ayn Rand wrote these like just total. It's where the neocon liberalist thing comes from. I don't want to pay taxes because I don't need to go to school. I
okay.
don't need a healthcare system because I'm rich. It's all
Yeah,
that
yeah,
crap. I hate it. It's
yeah.
just classic greed politics. Um, but it was, the Pursuit of Happiness was just, it's just all that. This guy's like a traveling salesman, and then he sees a guy who's like a stockbroker, and he sees how rich he is, and he goes, "Well, if he's that rich, he must be happy." And
Okay.
I'm going to go and be rich, and then I'll be happy, and I'll not have to worry about plebs. And it's like,
No,
oh
but
my
there is an
god,
element of truth to
seriously.
that.
It's, well, yeah, yes and
I don't
no.
know. Let's not get
Let's
into class
not
now. We can say that
no,
for
go
another
on.
time.
We'll get to politics. We'll get to, when we start talking about Karl Marx. I'll tell you why everybody's
Oh,
wrong. We'll
yes,
get to
mate.
that, but we'll get to that. That's for another day. So where were we? Yes, Akira Kurosawa's Ran, the film that made me love Shakespeare.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good hook for it.
Yeah.
if it needs it. Okay, so wonderful. Thank you, and I shall watch it absolutely. Right. So number one.
Number one is I don't even know what to say about it. It's an opera and a ballet, and I do like opera and ballet, um, but it's not an opera or a ballet, and it's not a film. It's a recording, and it's a film called The Tales of Hoffmann by Michael Powell, the guy who made the Red Shoes. You heard of the Red Shoes?
I'm afraid not.
Oh man, um, it's pills before swine here, Andy. It's pills
So
before swine.
I'm sorry, but I'm presuming that we've got about an audience of about 9 people now, and I'm presuming I know most of them, and I'm presuming that none of them have heard of the majority of these films, and
Yeah,
so
but some at least one person will have heard of Stanley Kubrick, and at
oh
least
yeah, Stanley
one
Kubrick,
person,
yeah, because
one
The
person,
Shining, The Shining is like
one
is
person will have heard of Kurosawa, and somebody, one of your viewers out there, will have heard of Michael Powell and the Red Shoes.
well, if you have, please leave a comment. That's what I normally.
Please leave a comment. Don't let me think that I'm the only guy out there that cares about this kind of stuff.
Um,
Um. Anyway,
cool.
so the Red Shoes is his most famous film. He made loads of films, and like some of them are just incredible. So lots of them are great. A couple of them are all right. But so many of them are brilliant. He's just a real pioneer, again, of using the camera, moving the camera, use of color at the time when Technicolor was like, you had to really justify making a color film, and he was making color films in the early 40s.
Well, because
Like,
of cost,
yes,
right?
yes, the Technicolor process was like 4 or 5 times the cost of shooting black and white.
Okay,
So it was really reserved. It was reserved for things like Gone with the Wind, The Wizard of Oz,
okay,
and the way they used to film it, because it was really new. It was not new technology, but it was still virgin territory to them. The type of film that they had was made by Kodak, and it had a very strong, very strong grain to it. So very colors were really saturated. And if you think back to Gone with the Wind, think back to the colors in The Wizard of Oz. The greens are like really, really green,
yeah,
and the blacks are jet black. And it was part of the process in the film. It would just give you these really distinct colors. Then Fuji came along in the 60s and 70s, started developing film that was like a real life true type color.
okay,
And then there was two worlds, Kodak versus Fuji. There were other film companies, but Kodak gave you that really saturated, ethereal, really beautiful, rich colors. Fujifilm gives you a really natural color, which is sort of reliable.
yeah.
Um, and when you're a film geek, you look at these things and you consider all that, and you go, what are they doing with that kind of stuff? So when they were shooting this stuff in film, they didn't really know how to light it, so they had to really, really light it. They had to get it really right. And when Michael Powell, so he made the Red Shoes in 1947, 48. In the middle reel of the Red Shoes is the famous bit. It's the Red Shoes Ballet. Kate Bush wrote an album, The Red Shoes, all
Okay,
about that middle reel,
okay.
and it's influenced everybody. Martin Scorsese and George Romero, the guy who made Taxi Driver and Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, I know. See, George Murray, you're getting into my territories. Yeah, go on.
Yep.
Sorry.
So when they were young men, the only way you could see a film that wasn't in the studio, it wasn't in the cinema, was to rent a 16mm print. And there was a cine rental place in South Manhattan. George Romero used to go from the Bronx to go and rent The Red Shoes or Tales of Hoffmann. And then they found out afterwards, when they sort of became established filmmakers, they started speaking and found out that they both went to that same place. And whenever The Red Shoes wasn't in, and Martin Scorsese would go there, it wasn't in, it was because George Romero had it. And the middle reel of that film and the way the camera jumps perspective and moves, and the cinema techniques in it that are just really, even to this day, are still really impressive. And from that middle reel, we got Taxi Driver and zombie films.
Yeah. Oh man, that's I see. Like I watched the trailer for that, and to be quite frank, I was having flashbacks to an earlier life where we used to watch a lot of films that were purposely quite visually hypnotic and
Uh-huh.
trippy.
Like
To
Head,
help.
the Monkeys film.
So which one? Sorry.
Head, the Monkeys film. Have you seen that?
No, oh, what, the Monkeys as in the band?
Yes,
I think I have.
that is a
Yes,
masterpiece. That is an unappreciated masterpiece.
is it?
It's really good. It is really good.
But okay, well, I'm good. I'm glad. I should have a look at that again. But we're looking at the trailer for Hoffman. It was I was very confused. I would absolutely have discounted it if A, you hadn't recommended it, and B,
Uh-huh.
George Romero hadn't said it's what made me want to make
It
films.
is. George Romero and Martin Scorsese both
Yeah,
said that those films are the reason they became
Uh,
filmmakers. Brian De Palma said the same thing as well.
that's just mental. So if we're going back to that little conversation about I've forgotten his name already, the original author, the original director from Hugo.
Georges Méliès.
Yeah, if you go, so he was like that's like virgin territory, and
Yep.
then you've got Hoffman a little bit later, like just creating something that is so inspirational and helps like basically form modern Hollywood. One might argue. I don't know with
Uh-huh.
some of those
Uh-huh.
directors. I
They,
mean,
yeah, they were the auteur generation. They were the guys who came after the studio system, where films were just a conveyor belt.
yeah,
Certain studios would do certain kind of films. Certain actors would just be, that's why Bogart made so many uh, gangster films.
right.
That was just, that's what they did. He worked for a studio where they made gangster films.
Okay, so that's really interesting, and I'd love to talk about this in more detail, but and we will. But does that have we gone back to that now? So if you look at The Rock, or if you look at, I know these are not highbrow pieces, but The Rock or Ryan Reynolds or some of the A-listers at the moment, then they're kind of like, well, if it's a film with The Rock in, it's going to most likely be this, and this. Quite formulaic. It's going to have a happy
Uh-huh,
ending. I mean, my
uh-huh,
kids keep going. One of them, Huxley's a bit sensitive, and then he goes, "Oh, I don't want to watch that." And I go, "Don't worry, mate. It's made in the 2000s. It's made by Disney. There's the only bad stuff is going to get resolved, and it's going to be a glorious tearjerker at the end of it. You can rely upon it."
mm.
Do you think we've kind of gone back to that? Did you refer to it as a studio
The
sort of?
studio system, the studio system was always there. What happened with the auteurs was that they came along and they started doing it themselves. They would privately finance films.
Uh,
Francis Coppola put every penny he had into making Apocalypse Now, and
okay,
then
I'm
ended
with
up like $30 million in debt. Um, there's a story about Martin Scorsese, and just after Apocalypse Now in the early '80s, he'd just made Raging Bull, um, and Apocalypse Now had just come out. In fact, no, it was before he made Raging Bull. He'd made a couple of films that didn't really take off, um, and Francis Coppola had just made Apocalypse Now, but it wasn't really out. Um, and Scorsese said to him, like, I don't know how you're getting on, but I'm completely skint. This is a nightmare. I'm broke." And Coppola said, "I'm $30 million in debt." When $30 million was a lot of money
yeah.
in the '70s.
Fucking hell,
Yep,
that's mental. He
yep.
must have convinced some people to give it to him though.
Well, he did. And then he tried it again. He made films after that. I mean, Apocalypse Now is like, I actually toyed with the idea of putting it in there because it's just such a mental film, but it's just so rich.
Yeah,
It's, and it's just, everything about it is just dialed, everything's at 11.
yeah,
Everything, every performance, every shot, the editing, the sound, everything about it is just pure cinema.
yeah. I actually know a
Um,
bit of some of the backstory, about Martin Sheen, what he was going through,
mhm.
and it's based on Conrad's Heart of Darkness, I think, isn't
That's
it? So
correct. Yeah.
yeah, so which is a cracking story.
That is a really good book. That
Yeah.
is a really good book. I think that's up there with Hemingway's stuff.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to do a book thing as well, man.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
okay, so just and it's a little bit spoilery. I'll put a thing at the beginning of this saying that there are partial
Spoiler alert.
spoilers in. What is the point of Hoffman? Because normally from a trailer, I can derive 80% of the storyline, what type of film it is. I couldn't get anything other than it was clearly freaking nuts. I don't think there was one sort of spoken word in the trailer. It
Yeah,
was from the cast. There was narration over the top, talking quite whimsically about stuff.
there aren't a lot of lines in Tales of Hoffman. There's a lot of music. There's a fair amount of singing. There's lots of dancing. There's also Frederick Ashton, who was the great creative director at the Royal Ballet. He was the guy who did he scored the dancing. I don't know what the technical term is for that, but
Is
he's
that
basically
choreography?
The choreography, yes, he
Yeah.
scored the choreography, and got basically everybody at the Royal Ballet to perform, and the great Moira Shearer, and the great Robert Helpman, who was a dancer for the Royal Ballet as well, um, and Thomas Beecham did the score, and it's based on an opera by Jacques Offenbach, who
Okay.
also wrote, the Can Can music.
Yeah.
Du-
Da,
du-
da,
du-
da,
du-
da, da,
du.
da, 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 da.
He wrote that.
Did he?
Yeah, yeah.
That's very cool.
So he wrote. It's an opera. It's an operetta. It's a series of light-hearted tales. They're tragedies, but it's all pretty straightforward. It's about the
So
time.
is it sorry.
It predates Puccini, and
Okay.
it predates Wagner. So it's not
Really?
opera. It's not opera as a high form of art,
Okay.
or it's not Puccini where everybody dies and
Yeah.
everybody's sad but elated at the same time. It's just it's it's the tales of every time the Hoffman had his heart broken.
Okay. Oh,
Um,
interesting. Okay, fine.
yep.
So if you're not an aspiring auteur or cinematography dude, and that's gender non-specific, then does it still have value as a film?
Absolutely. It's a great film to look at. It's got opera, it's got ballet, it's got just beautiful sets. There are bits in it that where there are people in the sets. Like in
Okay.
Jean Cocteau's La Belle et la Bête, Beauty and the Beast. There are
Yes.
arms through the wall that are holding the candles,
Okay. Yeah.
and they move, and there are parts of the set, and the heads move as people go past.
Oh,
You should look
wicked.
out for that. There's stuff like that in there, and there's sets that are there's nothing like it. It's absolutely nothing like it,
Okay. Right.
and it's completely unique. It's not for everyone, but I think it's just magical. I've never seen anything like it, and that's why I
Okay.
love it.
All right. Okay. Brilliant. Well, look, we're coming up to the hour. And more importantly, I've got to go and pick up my wife. Otherwise, I'll be in the
She's
trouble.
standing in the rain.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But I can we do some more of these, please, Mother?
Of course, of
Okay.
course.
Brilliant. But before we go,
Uh-huh.
I just want to, and these will come up on the screen. We won't see them. I wanted to pick my three favourite photos from the ones you sent through. And
Uh-huh.
the first one is of this one here, the chap in the kilt in the mirror. What's the story behind that?
I was in Tokyo with my pal, my friend Derek, who lives out there. And we went to watch um, Omiya FC playing Nagasaki Juniors. So it was like Leighton Orient versus Accrington Stanley of the J League. Um,
Hooray!
Omiya won, but still got relegated.
Oh,
And at the end of the match, the manager came out to the centre spot with a microphone and apologised to
hmm,
the supporters for getting relegated. And then
yeah,
he went round all four corners of the stadium and bowed in apology, which was mental, which
yeah.
I'd never seen before. So when Derek and I were in with the Ultras, with the Omiya Ultras, who were in December with their t-shirts off,
Oh, yeah,
screaming their heads off, singing all their Omiya FC songs.
yeah.
And Derek said, "Let's wear our kilts and we'll go out." And then we ended up. So we went out, and then we went to Roppongi, and then we ended up in a karaoke bar, um, in near where Derek lives in North Tokyo, in our kilts and my hustler. He's got a hustler t-shirt on.
Yeah, yeah, man. In that
Yes,
other photo, yeah.
and that picture he took of me, I went to the toilet and I was walking in Japan. All the karaoke places are all little booths, so
I know.
everybody's singing. It's in their little groups.
Yeah.
As I was walking past, um, the door was open with these guys, all these drunken Japanese blokes who were singing a song. And as I walked past, they went, "Scotlandura, Kiltara, where do you want this?" And I heard them, and I came in and went, "Hey, Scotlandura!" And they went, "Yeah, Scotland!" And then the next thing we knew, Derek was sitting waiting for me to come back to the toilet. The door slams open, and I came in with like a dozen Japanese blokes. And we went, "Hey, karaoke!" And myself and a guy called Yoshi, it was Yoshi, him and I did "I've Got You, Babe" by Sonny and Cher. And he did the Sonny Bono bits in Japanese, and
Yeah.
I did the Cher bits in English. And that picture is me singing "I Got You, Babe." And then
Oh, yeah, excellent. Well, that's, I mean, brilliant. That's amazing.
we
That's
were there till I think 9 o'clock in the morning.
really
Yeah, from
bloody
being
hell.
out at the football and on the beer all day, and somehow we lasted till 9 o'clock in the morning,
Proper,
and then
proper,
walked
man.
back.
Okay, amazing. All right, well, look, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna have to go. So we'll do the other photos for each episode. We'll do another one. But that's
Okay,
is that okay?
yeah,
Okay,
okay.
wonderful.
If I can leave you with one thing,
Go.
you mentioned the desert island
Oh
film, and I
yes,
thought about that before.
yeah,
My desert island film is North by Northwest by Alfred Hitchcock,
yeah.
which is not it's not my favorite Hitchcock film, but it is probably the most perfect film ever made.
Really,
Yeah,
that's very interesting because I got that cheap on Blu-ray when I was just trying to stock up on Blu-rays about 10
yeah,
years
because
ago,
you
and
can buy them
I
all
got
for
it for
pennies now.
57p, and so I
Yeah,
eventually watched it, and I was like, that's pretty good, but I don't know. I'm fascinated to know, and you have to do it in a minute and a half. Why it is the most perfect
it
film?
is. It is a completely generic, off the shelf book, off the shelf story. It's got a great cast: Cary Grant and Kim Novak, uh, and gosh, it's James Mason
Yeah,
and Martin Landau. James Mason is incredibly effete. Slightly, perhaps is a homosexual, but you're talking in this completely lured across fashion. And Cary Grant gets all these really great deadpan jokes, but the flow of it is just inch perfect. There's not an ounce of fat on that film. And right at the very end, there's the famous shot of the train going into the tunnel, and
yeah.
everybody went, "Oh, we all know what that is. It's a metaphor for the physical act of love." And Hitchcock stood up in front of everybody and he went, "No, I'm just really into trains." And he was a proper train spotter. He was really into trains. And he stood there with a smirk on his face and said, "No, no, no, it's just a train going into a tunnel." And the film ends. It's not my favourite Hitchcock. My favourite Hitchcock is Rope, but it is the most inch perfect film ever made.
Oh mate, I'm gonna watch it again though
You've got to
because
go
I
and
think
watch it
it's
again.
okay. Well, look, Murray, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for your time and insight and stories. And
Cool.
we'll get you back on soon, I hope.
Same time next week?
Yeah, yeah. Why not, man? Why
Why
not?
not? I've got nothing else to do.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, brother. Be well, man.
Thanks,
Cheers.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.